My name is Joseph Tal. I'm the CEO of CYFOX. Itai, again, is leading our AI and machine learning activities. And what we want basically to present to you today is our agentic GRC and the third-party risk management platform. And by the way, how many of you know what is agentic AI? Just raise your hand. Very nice. So as you know, I mean, when you're getting into the Claude or whatever, OpenAI, you're asking a question. And eventually you're getting some kind of an answer. What we've done here, we basically took the entire process of GRC and third-party risk management and basically let a machine run it through a company. That means that if you need to run DORA or NIST, and this is just a framing of the conversation, we are taking the actual regulation, the document that was provided to you by the government or by the specific, the SEC or the local stock exchange to run a regulated type of compliance structure. And the machine is basically taking the entire information from your infrastructure, mapping the controls that you have, and placing the frameworks that you need to deploy, and based on that, setting the exact status of your organization from a compliance perspective. And eventually creates the tasks that you as an organization are supposed to basically carry on and perform within the organization to get to actual compliance. And that's on the GRC side. Same thing with the third-party risk management. Assuming that you have, 500 or 1,000, third-party vendors that you're working with. Who's reading those, pen tests, the vulnerability assessments, the SOCs, the CISOs, all those, regulated requirements that every organization is supposed to understand, and based on those, documents to set the posture or the security risk that each of those organizations basically holds against your organization. And by that, what kind of a window of risk you have with them. Nobody. They're actually just, checking the box. They read, they actually, they were reading the terms and the conditions of your organization. They checked the box. Nobody was reading the documents they uploaded, and they can start working with you. That's usually the case. Again, we're taking all this into a new approach, and we're going to show you now. Just go back 1 second. As you can see here, 87% of the CISOs, they need to understand what they need to do to get to compliance. Nobody really knows what they need to do. Nobody knows what is their current risk appetite that they are carrying into the organization. Just in the last, 12 months, 5 new regulations was presented in a global scale. DORA is one of them. You touched it in a bit. NIST 2, CCPA came with the new requirements. That's the California Privacy Act. The GDPR, obviously some new regulation requirements came in. The ISO 42001. All those new regulations or new amendments to the regulations came in, and you need to know what you need to do. And usually what you do, you're bringing in consultants to tell you what you need to do. In this case, our machine, our OmniSec, which we're going to elaborate more about it, will tell you what you need to do without any consultant. This is your current state. This is where you want to be. Go ahead. So, as mentioned, we're basically going to provide to each of the organizations the context of their organization. So if you're a financial institution, we are going to deploy the right frameworks of your industry. And based on that, we know what kind of controls you need to have in place. Or if you are missing some of those controls, for example, you have kind of a missing control, but you're doing it in a purpose. You have a purpose because you have a compensated control. You want to have a risk exception because there is a legacy system that is not able to carry out whatever you need to do, but you understand the risk. All that context will get into the system and eventually will produce the actual risk score for your organization. Real-time reporting, just try to imagine. You understand what you need to do, but you don't know what kind of state you are in, okay? the system will perform a gap analysis inside of the organization by connecting to the WISs of the world, the CSPMs, the EDRs, the SSPMs, the DSPMs, whatever exists within the organization today, and immediately pull the controls that exist within that organization, and by that will understand what needs to be done to deploy the right additional capabilities or understandings to get to actual compliance. Next one. So what is traditional GRC and what is agentic GRC? Autonomous, the agentic GRC is basically autonomous, continuous validation, proactive mitigation, and AI-powered execution. I mean, against the traditional GRC, which you can see here, which is basically very slow, manual, periodic audits, reactive alerts, human bottlenecks. It's all very complex and not very efficient. Here we can basically get to compliance faster by reducing up to 60% of your actual resources and costs. Next one. So why now? I mean, obviously you heard about the fact that there is some kind of a new capability, which is LLM. So what we've done here, we took the LLM, we trained it, we basically harnessed it into our benefit. The AI and the LLM capabilities that we basically got into our system is able now to understand not only the context, but is basically providing to the customer the ability to understand what he needs to do to get to compliance. Everything is basically end-to-end AI-based type of a process. There is no manual process here, except the actual facts of the tasks that the customer needs to do to get to compliance. So for example, if the database is not encrypted, the machine will tell you what you need to do to get to actual encryption. So step by step, it will tell you what kind of database you have, what you need to do to encrypt it, and how you basically need to report it. That's one case. Data availability. There is more telemetry right now that you can basically pull from cloud infrastructure, EDRs, CSPMs, whatever you have right now inside of your organization to get to actual compliance and understanding of what needs to be done. The regulation became very hectic. I mean, it was it became very, it actually bites the different customers out there that are not comply with the regulations. I mean, I didn't introduce myself properly, but I was running for almost 14 years a global business for IBM in the cybersecurity space. I was building the IBM security, and then I was a CISO in one of the largest banks in the world. So everything you heard today, I was actually dealing with actually deploying. So I know firsthand that when you have the right compliance and the right structure and the right framework, you can basically get to actual posture, defense in depth, the ability to respond faster. And not only that, eventually to get to the auditors and to the government, the right information to get to the actual information that they're asking, and by that to comply and not get fined. Because the banks that I was working for, they got fined for $2.5 billion in the past few years. But again, regular shift. Next one, please. So as I touched it there, in a very fast way, but again, we're able to basically to perform to perform gap analysis and understand what kind of gaps exist within the organization, to assign to the stakeholders within the organization with the actual tasks that they need to basically to perform to get to compliance easily. Track the evidence. So, for example, you have a privacy policy. You're uploading that specific privacy policy, and the system will provide the task that needs to be done, if it's a training for the organization and the users, or by understanding if the policy is basically complying with the regulation requirements. So all kind of steps to get to the actual compliance. The system will provide you the exact understanding on that, and the progression. The system will always understand what is the progression against the last time that you ran the gap analysis, and what was progressed and what was changed. Next, please. So again, continuous assessment, real-time alerts, the dashboard is there. We can do this as a whole from both ends, from the GRC space and the third-party risk management. And by that, to get to the board, to the CISO, to the CEO with understanding on the current state, that's what needs to be done, what kind of budget you need, and what is missing to basically to get to the actual compliance. Go ahead, please. I mean, I think we have like 5 minutes, and I want to take the opportunity maybe to stop now with the presentation and maybe open it for questions. I like to be interactive. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand, ask a question. I'd love to answer to your questions. Please, please.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm head of InfoSec at a major law firm. I was wondering, in terms of being able to pull data into the platform and analyze it, what are the prerequisites or assumptions? For example, do the various data sources have to expose an API that you have a connector built to query? And if so, kind of what's your coverage across the market-leading providers in, say, learning management systems?
It's a good thing I have Itai here.
Yeah. Great. So I could probably answer that question. So we have our integrations that we've already connected. So we have Wiz as an integration. We have our own XDR. We have several other integrations that we are currently already integrated into the application. But obviously, customized ones or customizable ones, we will work with you to make those integrations normalized so we can use them in the platform and give you that visibility with compliance.
Additional questions, please?
Sure.
So I think you focused on regulatory and legislative requirements being the kind of target, and I can see the value in that. But a lot of my problem set is, as a professional services organisation, inherently is compliance with many client contractual obligations. So what kind of extensibility do you have in terms of not covering, say, 5 regulations, but maybe 5,000 contracts? How extensible is the platform in that regard? And what format do they need to be in?
So in terms of how we organized it, we've framed things in terms of an audit, right? So you can audit and you can add multiple contracts into that audit. You can essentially compile different frameworks that you need to comply with for a specific, audit that you're basing on, if it's a customer, if it's a vendor. So we've scaled it in a way that it could be managed through for multiple frameworks, multiple customers, multiple clients. And
you can also add bylaws. So for example, internal bylaws of the organization, you can add that and the system will be able to monitor that. I think it's going to be an extension. I think from your end, if I'm looking at it from your perspective, it can be an extension to the HRM systems, okay? So the human risk management systems, it can be an extension because you're not just monitoring the actual activity of the users, but actually aligning it to the, to the regulation requirements. Additional questions, please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I've just got 2 things to ask. One, the system, after gathering and analyzing the data, okay, able to categorize the risk levels of what is being analyzed, because you want to bring out gaps, you want to bring out exposures.
Yeah.
So is the system able to categorize the risk according to identification? That's one. 2, is the system having provision for alerts and notification like SOC system would do if there are issues? So key persons are being notified for probably actions to be taken.
Great. So I'll answer the first question. So in terms of how the system actually weighs risk and how this happens, because we didn't really get into the whole process of how you start. So we basically create an onboarding experience for the user, the company. Okay, that's where they fill in their basic context, like you would do with any other, third-party auditor. Okay, you provide context, and then we have the connectors that provide more network context to the platform. Okay, from there, the LLMs actually, all the way from, let's say, when you specify the framework that you want to actually audit, to the gaps, it already creates it's aware of who you are, what your business is, what kind of integrations you have connected, what frameworks you've already complied with or not complied with, what audits are in place, and therefore it can actually, create risk levels for specific metrics. Okay, so that's how it happens. And, so the whole benefit of this platform is the way that it knows you, knows your business, knows your connectors, knows your compliance status, and that's how it...
And the second question was, apologies.
Yeah, the second question is, having been able to create the risk levels based on the inputs, how are key persons notified promptly?
So that's basically based on the gap analysis that we perform. the system runs a gaps analysis, and based on the controls and the risk within each of the controls has basically a risk associated based on the framework. So, for example, if you have a requirement within the framework to have a privacy policy, that's one of the high-end priorities and the highest risk requirements within the framework. And until the system is not satisfied with that specific requirement, it's basically going to highlight that as a high risk, which is not fulfilled yet. That make sense?
Yes, but if I am a risk owner in the system based on the system setup, and there is an exposure that I'm supposed to know because I'm the gatekeeper for that particular risk, how am I going to know on time?
You're going to get notified immediately, because that specific task will be assigned to you, and you're going to get a kind of a risk score and kind of a notification immediately from the system that something was changed, or if you not comply with a specific requirement within the control. Okay?
Is that automated?
Automated.
Yeah. So these gap analysis happen on an automated basis, and you can configure it how much you want it to happen. If you want it daily, or on whatever basis that you would want, then you get notified when obviously you find certain risks.
With a step-by-step process of what needs to be done to get to compliance, technical and managerial. Additional questions, guys? Please.
Following up with all those questions which they have asked, so like you have told us that there is a policy of making it flexible with all the other organizations. If he belongs to the law firm, if I'm doing work in the education sector. So is your software flexible enough that we can apply our own rules instead of bothering you again and again?
Yes.
Can you please move?
I said bylaws.
So is it like, if I want to change the policy, do they input like setting up my own?
Yeah,
So-
you're going to see it. If we can show you a demo outside.
But I can get into that a little more. So even if you, let's say, start a new audit and there's like a specific compliance framework that you choose, whether it's NIST or any other framework, and let's say some of the controls aren't exactly tailored to your company, right? You can remove them. Okay, you can remove some controls and specify why they're not completely tailored to you. Okay, or you can change the wording in terms of. Let me get a little more into how we create a framework. So a framework is they have their controls, right? So that's like what needs to be shown, or the rule that needs to be followed. And then there are deliverables and success criteria. Okay, so that's where the LLM comes in and creates those deliverables and success criteria that you have to answer in that, okay, or your evidence needs to answer. So all of that is changeable, right? All of that could be customized, could be changed, could be removed, could be edited. And that's how we kind of flip the script from giving you these rigid, frameworks with controls that are maybe not tailored to your company, right? To having something that's completely fitted to your company. Okay? Makes sense?
Guys, I got a kind of a notification from the person that sits in front of me that we are out of time, but we are here, and we'll be more than happy to answer more questions. So please, thank you again for hosting us. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, George and Tim, and everybody. We'll be here to answer more questions outside. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.